Glory be to God, Mighty God Ministries, episode 97, and this is Jonah series chapter 2. So this is going to be a good one. Obviously, the last one, let's pull it up so we can see it. The last one that we did, we went over what ended up happening. He was in the large fish, essentially. And just to give you a comparison, let's show that real quick, because these ones are definitely a little bit shorter than these ones are definitely shorter than, let's see if I can pull something up real quick. Oh, that's a good one right there. We'll use this one. So let's see if we can, oh, here we go. And again, I don't know if this is, if this site is, a valid representation of it, what I mean, but I just know we can pull this up. And then, so if you could see that right there, that shows this fish called a lead cissus, or I don't know how you pronounce it. But if you look at the person right there, we can see the size. And obviously, a person could definitely fit inside this fish. And this is the fish that most likely we would probably think that Jonah would have been in. And again, I don't know for sure, but obviously this is just a comparison. I was going to show that yesterday, but I couldn't find it. So let's move on. All right. Chapter 2. So Jonah's prayer. Then Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from inside the fish. He said, I cried out to the Lord in my great trouble, and he answered me. I called to you from the land of the dead, and Lord, you heard me. You threw me into the ocean's depths, and I sank down to the heart of the sea. The mighty water engulfed me. I was buried beneath your wild and stormy waves. Then I said, O Lord, you have driven me from your presence. Yet I will look once more toward your holy temple. I sank beneath the waves and the waters closed over me. Seaweed wrapped itself around my head. I sank down to the very roots of the mountains. I was imprisoned in the earth, whose gates lock shut forever. But you, O Lord my God, snatched me from the jaws of death as my life was slipping away. I remembered the Lord, and my earnest prayer went out to you in your holy temple. Those who worship false gods turn their back on all God's mercies. But I will offer sacrifices to you with songs of praise, and I will fulfill all my vows, for my salvation comes from the Lord alone. Then the Lord ordered the fish to spit Jonah out onto the beach. So this is interesting. This is a really short one, and obviously you could probably read it and understand it, because a lot of this is literal terms, except for the way he describes it. That might not be a literal way, but this one's pretty easy to get. So let's just go through it though real quick. Then Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from inside the fish. So of course, obviously we know he was a believer, right? And he was running away. And one of the reasons why is because he didn't believe the city should be saved, I believe. I think he was just like, oh, they're toast, they're like Sodom and Gomorrah or one of those types. And he was like, they're done, so that's why he didn't want to do it. But obviously, if you're a believer, which he was, he did the right thing. I cried out to the Lord in my great trouble, and he answered me, right? Because again, if you're in trouble, we're supposed to go into prayer and petition and thanksgiving for all things big and small. So all things. If you're going to say like, hey, should I get this bike or something like that, or, a certain brand, you should be praying for that. A lot of us just make our own decisions and do what we want, but you should be praying for everything. But obviously, if you're stuck in the fish, you're definitely going to be like being, God, help me, save me. I didn't mean to not listen to you. That type of thing. So that's what it's showing away. And then right here is doing the actual, I believe this is when he would have been in the water, and then obviously the fish swallowed him. You threw me into the ocean depths, and I sank down to the heart of the sea. The mighty waters engulfed me. I was buried beneath your wild and stormy waves. So obviously he's under the water, can't, obviously he's like, doesn't know what to do. Then I said, oh Lord, you have driven me from your presence. Basically thinking he's probably a goner. He's probably thinking like, whoa, I'm a goner. Yes, I will look once more toward your holy temple. So again, that's just saying like, hey, I'm going to glorify God and praise you. And then right here, I sank beneath the waves and the water closed over me. So seaweed wrapped itself around my head. So again, what's that mean? That means he's under the water and he's basically a goner. That's what he's probably thinking. And obviously he went so far down, there was seaweed wrapped around his head. And it says, I sank down to the very roots of the mountains. Okay. So again, do we know what that means? We don't know if that means the ocean floor or what that means. It says, I was imprisoned in the earth whose gates locked shut forever. Okay, so that one also, we don't know if he was in, hit the ground and then the fish came and got him, or if it was the fish got him when he was sinking down, and then now that's why he's saying he's, the gate's locked shut forever, because he's like, he ain't getting out. But it says, but you, O Lord my God, snatched me from the jaws of death. So again, we don't know if that means the fish came and like, swooped him up in his mouth, or if that meant like, he was on the ground and then the fish came. We don't know. But it says this, as my life was slipping away, I remember the Lord. So again, okay, as my life was slipping away, most likely, if you think about that, and the way it describes it with the seaweed, he probably was running out of breath, because obviously if you go in the ocean, you go to a certain depth, you're going to run out of breath and die, right? Unless God steps in. And then that's what he says, I remember the Lord, and my earnest prayer went out to you in your holy temple. Okay. And then those, I'm going to go back to a point I want to make there, and I'm going to give you a resource that shows a true story. We'll go over that later, but those who worship false gods turn their backs on all God's mercies. Again, so he's saying right there, he knows, like, you don't worship false gods, because that's going to lead you to destruction. But I will offer sacrifice to you with songs of praise. Again, what have we talked about that we see in the Bible nonstop? What are the things we need to do? Pray and praise. Praise music works. Put on the praise music. Sing the praise music. That's why when you go to church, most churches don't have, where there's no praise music, because they know prayer and praise works. Right here, it's telling you, I will offer sacrifice to you. So what it says, what's that saying right there? Songs of praise. So when you're praising the Lord, what are you doing? You're offering sacrifices to him. He sees you. And it says, and I will fulfill all my vows. Basically saying, like, wait, I'm ready to go to Nineveh now. I'm gone. I'm in the big fish. Let me out so I can do what you want me to do. I'm not going to run away anymore. Which again, we know he thought he could and get away with it, because he would have never bought the ticket. He would have never bought the ticket if he didn't think he'd get away with it. But he did. But God knows everything. God knew he bought the ticket. He knew he was going to buy the ticket. It's just funny. For my salvation comes from the Lord alone, which again, that's true. The only way you can get salvation is through Jesus Christ. You have to believe in Jesus Christ. You have to believe he came down to earth, died on the cross, rose 3 days later. That's the only way you can be saved. If anyone else tells you something different, that is not true. But normally when you read a salvation prayer, or even if you read a tract, a lot of times it's telling you that this is the bridge to get you across, essentially. So if you read it and you believe it, then you're saved. Okay, and that's why it says, for my salvation comes from the Lord alone. Then the Lord ordered the fish to spit Jonah out onto the beach, which is like, how funny is that? Like, could you imagine that? The big fish just like pulls up a little bit and shoots him out of his mouth, It's just, they seem crazy, but they're real. They are real, and I can tell you, because I've seen some stuff that, like, again, it just blows my mind. His timing is perfect. It blows my mind. But what I did want to talk about before we close out on this, because some of these are a little bit shorter, obviously, was right now you're probably thinking as, a person, let's just say a person in the world, or like we would all think, even like I would have thought originally when I first read this, you're probably thinking like, okay, this can't be real. Obviously, we took care of the fish problem right in the first chapter. Okay, that there is a fish big enough to swallow a man back in the day. Just like we know a T-Rex, we wouldn't have believed that, but it's there. We have the bones to prove it, right? The fossil bones. But let's just say this, okay? You don't believe, he could live because he would have drowned in the water, which he was probably pretty close. But you have to remember that God can do anything he pleases. So God sustains our life every day. It is not, yes, do you need air to live? Yes, you do, but it's him who sustains it. So if he says, you know what, you can't breathe, that's okay, I'm going to sustain your life. He can sustain your life without breath. He can do it. He can sustain your life without food, which is why Jesus and Moses were able to go for 40 days and 40 nights fasting, no food, no water. Now, what would a normal person say? They'd say, you can't make it past 5 to 7 days without food or water, right? That's the normal term. But we also know that's not true also. Because there was a guy in a prison that, this is a long time ago. We'll just give you an example. That's not even with God, or maybe he was a believer. I don't know if he was a believer and God intervened there or what, or he wasn't. But he survived by licking, he didn't get water. They forgot the guy was in the cell. I forget, it was it was like a very extremely long amount of time of days. And he was able to survive because there was like condensation building up in the walls, and he would lick the condensation off the walls. That's how he got water. Now he didn't have food, but again, if God wants us to save you, and it's not your time to go to heaven, He can do anything. And a perfect example, this movie would probably, this is not for kids, but there's a movie called After Death. And it's a real, I personally, the reviews are hit and miss, but I personally really thought it was good. But there's a guy on there, and he went underwater, and he was a professional, I don't know if he was like for the Coast Guard. I forget where he worked for, but he was like a professional. And he went under the water, and he had a miraculous encounter with God, and he talks about it. And when he came back up, because there's no way he could have been under that long without God. And again, because you can't breathe, you die. But when he came back up, all the people that were with him when it first happened, they thought he was dead. And they even said, because they know, like they use scuba gear, they know, they're familiar with going like deep sea diving and stuff. They said like you were under there like a long time, like basically saying like you can't be alive, you know. And then I can't remember if he told him right then, or he's like, yeah, I was under there pretty long, because that, whatever it was, I don't know if it was like half an hour or something like that. Without God sustaining your life, you're a goner. But it just goes to show you, if you don't believe this, there's a video. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick, because you might even be able to just find his testimony. And I think it was on After Death. Was it this? I'm hoping I'm giving you the right resource, or maybe I saw it on YouTube. I'll have to see if I can find it, and if I do, hopefully it's on there. What was the guy's name? Oh, this is right. This is it right here. Navy diver drowns and meets his family. This is him right here. Let me see if I can find his name.
This is the pink salt.
I got the commercial. Hold on. Bear with me. This is the salt that's going to drop you 20 dress sizes by just having the salt. All right, what's the guy's name? David Bennett. It's DAVIDBENNETT. He was a California Coast Guard and a chief engineer. So this guy knew his stuff. Like you could tell when he tells the story, like you could tell like he knows his stuff, and like he's been doing it forever. So like me, I've been doing IT all my life. So if you came to me and I told you something about computers, most likely if you look at my resume, you're gonna know like I know what I'm doing. Not in everything, obviously, because it changes. Everything changes. You have to relearn. But you're gonna have some. You're obviously gonna have a certain level of background experience, just like this guy. He worked for the California Coast Guard or whatever like that. So obviously, it's not his first rodeo. He's been doing it his whole life. But he tells the story. It is really good. I would recommend you check that out, because he has an experience like that, and he's underwater for like like I said, the way he tells it, the guys are like, dude, like you were under for like a pretty long time, basically being like how are you alive? Like that's what they're like, how are you alive? But he tells the story, and he told him God saved him. He sustained his life. That's why actually too, when I pray. It's a funny thing because I pray about a lot of stuff. But I pray for blessings, like, so I'll pray like literally for air and breath, because that's what, again, your nose. Think about it. If you couldn't smell, could you imagine your life? You couldn't smell. Some people don't have them. We don't know why they're like that, but they can't smell, right? But like think about that. Like if you can't smell, like think about how good of a blessing that is. So I literally, like when I pray, I'll be like, Lord, thank you for smells, good smells and bad smells, and I'll tell him, thank you for the bad smells that even smell good, because like think about like if you have rotten food, right? It's a bad smell, but what does it tell you? It tells you to throw it away. Or think about like when you stink. Like let's say you go work out in the gym, or let's say even if you go outside, we all know you go outside for a certain amount of time, you sweat, and then it gets on your clothes, and then you come inside and you have that like, I don't know if it's called stinky outside smell. I don't know what the name is, but like you can always tell, like if you've been outside and been doing something, even if you were just walking, when you come inside, if you don't take a shower, like you have that smell on you. I don't know what it's called. And I have some pants that I wear too. Like it's funny there. I'm not gonna say the brand, but like if you're outside for them in a little bit of time, like they actually smell. You can be like, what is that? But what happens is your legs sweat, and then depending on the material, certain materials smell more. So, it's funny like that, like your nose and your breath. Like, that's God's air. You know what I mean? So thank him for your lungs and your nose, that you're able to breathe in the air every day and you're able to exhale it out. Obviously that oxygenates your body to sustain your life, but again, it's God who sustains your life. You know, you can see it a million places. So again, just a little. I'm glad the Holy Spirit reminded me about that, because I wanted to bring that up about the point of that. So, and then if you're not saved, I don't even know if I might have already said this right, but if you're not saved, we could say this as many times as we want, because this is one of the most important things you could do. Is get saved. Read that more length. Read the description prayer. The other thing I would recommend is try to save somebody else. Work on trying to save somebody else. It's an important thing. And I'm going to go over this in one of the videos when I do it down the road of the judgment seat or reward system, whatever you want to call it. There's rewards. Like, don't think like if God's not like one. Like, if you work for God, guess what? He created everything. Like, don't think you're not going to get a paycheck. You might not get till you get in heaven, and it might be a little bit different than you think, because obviously there ain't gonna be money up there. But like, you're gonna get crowns, and I guarantee you save some people, you're gonna get a crown for saving people. That's almost guaranteed. I don't know. I got to look up and see if that one's actually in the Bible scripture. I don't know about that one, but I would assume, like, obviously if you save people, that you're stopping you from going to hell. Like, that's a big thing. Like, I'm assuming it doesn't say it in there, but I'm assuming you get something for that. That's a good deed, and then that makes God happy. That makes him happy, because he wants all his children to be with him in heaven. He wants all of us to be with him. But unfortunately, again, well, it's not a bad thing. He gives us free will. He gives us free will because he has to. Otherwise, you can't love him. You can't choose to love him, or choose not to love him. So again, this one's pretty quick. We stretched it out a little bit with a couple stories, but I think that's you go check out that video. That's on YouTube, and go check out that video, and you'll see. And when you hear the guy's story, like, I knew right away. I'm like, yep. I'm like, there's without a doubt. I'm like, this dude's telling the true story. Like, there's too much. The details are too vivid. He has too much of a background story. Like, there's, it's just the way it happened. You can tell. So God bless you. We'll see you in the next one.